children are dying because of cancer. Young women get raped, men get depressed. 8 billion people on this planet, and each one of them suffering in some way. Yet there are those who say that there is an all-powerful God of love. Well, if that God truly is all-powerful and loving, then why doesn't he help and stop the suffering? Why doesn't this God intervene in all his power? And if God created everything, then where does evil come from? This is the third episode of the series, New to Faith, and it's an extremely important episode because in the first episode I shared that I believe the main reason for why people don't believe in God isn't because the idea of God existing is too far-fetched, but because they've gotten such a negative image of what that God would be like that they don't want him to exist. And the existence of evil and suffering, of course, have everything to do with the character of God, your image of God. Because a good God surely wouldn't allow all of this to just happen, right? In the previous episode, we saw how God wrote 783,137 words to humanity to give us everything that we need to find healing and restoration for our soul. And one part of that is to find answers to these critical questions. So in his book, God pulls back the curtains of the unseen and lets us in on the supernatural dimension and reveals the origin story of an antagonist, an angel who made himself the enemy of God, the devil. And in my pursuit of restoring the image of God for you, I want to show you in this episode that God is transparent. We'll start the story in the Bible book called Ezekiel. The prophet Ezekiel is sent to a human prince to deliver a message from God. And that message begins with these words. Because your heart is lifted up and you say, I am a God. I sit in the seat of gods in the midst of the seas. Yet you are a man and not a God, though you set your heart as the heart of a God. So the problem of this prince is that he wanted to be God. Now keep this in mind. This is the context in which God brings up the origins of this antagonist, of this drama story. Listen to what God continues to say as he now no longer talks about this human prince, but the angel Lucifer. You were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were the anointed cherub who covers. I established you. You were perfect in your ways. From the day you were created till iniquity was found in you. Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. So Lucifer, an angel, given the highest position among the angels, God made him perfect, complete, beautiful in every way. But God says something happened in the heart of this angel. His heart was lifted up because of his beauty, and he became self-absorbed. And in the mind of this angelic creature, gradually feelings of pride emerged as he began to dwell more and more on his own perfection, his beauty, his position and wisdom. In another book of the Bible, named after the prophet Isaiah, God sends another message, but this time to the king of Babylon. Babylon, an empire known for its false worship and rebellion against God. Now in that context, God exposes another part of the devil's origin story that gets deeper into his thoughts. How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning, for you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will also sit upon the mount of the congregation on the farther sides of the north. This is where other Bible verses tell us where God has his throne. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. So Lucifer, just like the human prince from earlier, had set his heart as the heart of a god. He wanted to rule, he wanted the power, he wanted the worship that belonged to God. Lucifer wanted God's throne. So what did he do? Later in that passage in the book of Ezekiel that we read before, God tells us, you defiled your sanctuaries by the multitude of your iniquities. by the iniquity of your trading. So God tells us that the heavenly culture got disrupted because of Lucifer's trading. Now that word is also translated as merchandise or traffic. It's based on a Hebrew word which means to go from one to another. And especially when we see that word used in other places in the Bible, to go from one another, especially in the context of spreading lies and slander, saying things about someone that aren't true to damage their reputation. So God unveils this scene of Lucifer going around from angel to angel, saying things about God that aren't true, sowing seeds of distrust and discontent, trying to gain the support of the angels for his ideas in his pursuit to overthrow God from his throne. And in a later episode, we'll also see him use this same strategy in the Garden of Eden. And God tells us a third of the angels sided with Lucifer. Lucifer meaning light bearer, but now he publicly became Satan, meaning adversary. The kingdom of heaven became divided, and before long it led to a full-on insurrection. And war broke out in heaven. Michael, this is a title for Jesus, and his angels fought with the dragon, which the next verse identifies as being the devil. And the dragon and his angels fought, but they did not prevail, nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. Now, don't picture this scene with lightsabers and space battles. This was an intellectual war of ideas. The devil alleging that they didn't need God. They can reach a higher life form. They could be like gods themselves. Yet where did these ideas emerge from? From pride, jealousy, betrayal. And to push his egotistical agenda, he lies, he agitates, he manipulates. The devil pioneered, introduced a way of life that's outside the will and design of God. Now this is crucial for you to understand. If God by nature is good, that it's not a quality that he has, but that he is the essence of goodness, then what do you get when you operate outside of that? The absence of goodness. And that's what we call evil. God didn't create evil, just like he didn't create the devil. That was never God's will. His will was for Lucifer to be this beautiful, complete, and perfect angel. He gave him the highest position among the angels. But this angel chose, in pursuit of wanting to become his own God, to reject the God of heaven and pioneer and propagate the ways of evil. And now comes the part where we can really see just how transparent God is. And that has to do with the question that you may be wondering right now. If God is all-knowing and knew that the ways of the devil would lead to pain and suffering and evil, then why didn't God stop him? Why didn't God destroy him before it led to this war? Well, God could have. He could have destroyed the devil. But what would have happened if he did? Imagine being one of the angels in heaven, and one day Lucifer, highest of all the angels, comes to you, takes you aside into a room and shares these ideas about God that are completely new to you. That God actually isn't who he says that he is. Secretly, God doesn't actually care for them. He just wants to be the one to rule, to control everyone. But Lucifer, he's got ideas that would be better for the kingdom, that would benefit you as an angel. But God had told Lucifer, shh, don't tell anyone, keep quiet. And right at that moment, God bursts open the door and bam, destroys Satan right in front of you. Problem solved, right? Now, of course, this was a bit of a dramatic example, but the principle is the same. Destroying Satan, the devil, would only seem to confirm the accusations and lies that he had been propagating to the angels. The concerns and the doubts they were having about God's credibility and character would appear to be justified. Because though God may be an all-knowing God, you as an angel are not an all-knowing angel. You wouldn't know that God only destroyed the devil just to spare everyone from a whole lot of trouble. And even though if God would try to explain that to you, how can you know if you can trust what he says? God is not a God who works in secret and making these arbitrary decisions behind closed doors. God is open. God is transparent. He cares about his creatures. He doesn't want them to need to live in fear or doubt. He wants them to be free and be at peace. Even though God desperately wants to put an end to evil, first, God gave the angels the possibility to see for themselves what God could foresee. That the devil has been lying to them about God. That God's will isn't tyrannical or egotistical, but it's for the well-being of all creatures. And that the ways of Satan are evil. That this be your own God philosophy naturally leads to pain and suffering and even death. And by seeing this firsthand, when that day comes, when God will destroy the devil, will destroy all evil, they will know and trust that that's not an act of censorship or oppression or fascism on God's part, but that it's the right thing to do. But even though God didn't create the devil, evil, and this whole supernatural war was never part of his will, why didn't God just prevent all of it by not creating Lucifer? And if this was a war that happened in heaven, then why are we suffering here on earth?